In this episode, I sit down with a dear friend of mine, Shauna Sweeney, who is the founder and CEO of Tendercare. We talked about a bunch of different topics, her relationship with her dad's diagnosis of Alzheimer's, how they've navigated that, her working at Facebook, and then transitioning out of that to then build Tendercare, how she views the world and how she sees building solutions for caregivers. It's an absolutely incredible episode. It absolutely blessed me, and I hope that it blesses you, and I hope you guys enjoy.
I'm Shauna. I am the lucky founder and CEO of Tendercare. We build digital tools for family caregivers like myself to get help when they find themselves in a situation, usually on the other side of it, a diagnosis where they need to step in and do a lot more to help their family member. We're here in my house with my dad. This is the house I grew up in. It's the house my dad grew up in. I was called to this work because I was working in tech about 13 years ago when my dad was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. This was way younger than most people. He was in his 50s, early 50s at the time, and he thought he had, another 20, 30 years of a career in front of him. So did I. My dad was superhuman to me. He raised me as a single parent. And at that point, I had no idea what Alzheimer's was. I was living over in New York. All I knew was that if my dad needed my help, I was going to be there for him, and I was going to step in and repay the favor of what a great parent he had been for me. And that really kicked off my journey of understanding just how hard it is to be an adult child who is embarking on what can often, in my case, be sometimes 13, 20-year journey of not just taking care of yourself, and in my case, not just taking care of your kids, but also now taking care of your parent.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot to juggle all at once, right? And real quick about your dad, because so we were talking a bunch about your dad's early days of ultra marathoning and running and stuff. How did your dad originally get into running, if you know that story?
Such a good question. I think I must have been 6 or 7 at the time when he ran his first marathon. It was actually out next to our house. We are lucky to live in an area with so much greenery and trails and mountain biking. And so there was this race. I remember being like 7 or 8, I think. And it was only a few minutes away. And I remember my dad just being like, do I do this? Should I run this? Should I try? I'm not sure. And I remember being like, yeah, you should do this. And of course, like, he didn't bring me with him. I was too little. But I remember him coming back and he'd finished and it was a marathon and he'd be like, I did it. I did it. And like, I think he was hooked at that point. And then of course, like, my dad doesn't do anything half measure. It's not like, oh, cool, I'll do like 1 or 2. It's like, oh no, we're going to do a marathon every weekend now. This is going to be my life for the next 20 years. So, maybe in retrospect, I'm like, what did I do?
So it quickly became part of his life because he's not ever like half in, half out, which is, I could relate to that so much because I ran 1 half marathon and now I'm hooked for life. I'll run probably until I can't anymore. Yeah. And I take training so seriously because it's either you do that or you don't.
Yeah, and it's such a better quality of life. Like, I mean, anybody who's on the other side of a run knows it's like so much better. The world just seems brighter.
Mm-hmm. So you're very close to your dad growing up.
Oh my God, we were freaking frack. Yeah. He was more than a dad. He was also a best friend. We did everything together, and because also it was just the two of us so often, we were stepping in as real like partners and teammates to each other. He wasn't the most organized guy in the world. And so I was like, Dad, you're overdue. Like, you got to go like fill these bills out. You got to go sign these papers, And so it was a really important relationship for me because he showed up at he was both kind of in many ways like showing up as my mom and my dad sometimes. He was there at the brownie meeting. He was the only dad there. He was my soccer coach when I was like in 1st and 2nd grade, like very present in my life. And I really needed him and he showed up for me. And so even when I grew up, instead of sort of like leaving and not staying close, we stayed really, really tight. Even when I was in college and then beyond.
It's funny because like when you start running, that becomes your life and your full-time job. But what was your dad doing outside of that, outside of running?
My dad was a ship captain, so the reason he had all this time to run, he had a really specialized job. It was a San Francisco bar pilot. There's not very many of them. Their whole job is to take the biggest tankers and cargo ships in the world, those really big ones that you see out on the ocean, and as they came in through the San Francisco Bay, underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, make sure that they're coming in to land safely. It's really dangerous. This is like if you do one thing wrong with a ship, it's like massive damage to a wharf or a bridge. We've seen that. And so it's a highly specialized job. When my dad wasn't running, he was out on these ships, and you had a very specific amount of time you can be on these ships because you need to be so alert. And so it gives you a lot of free time to rest and recharge in between. And so he would use his recharge hours to take to the hills and go running.
Right. That's how he recharges, is by like going out
Just
and
running and not stopping.
What a guy, right? That's so funny. But yeah, so we took some time yesterday to take a look at where he worked and the job site, and it looks, I mean, we don't know anything about being out in the water. You know, being from Las Vegas, there's no water anywhere. Like the closest beach is like 4 hours away. But taking a look at the people out there and the kind of work that they do, it seems like it's a big undertaking to like be out in the water and be responsible for that. Was that something that he always wanted to do, or did he fall into it?
He's been obsessed with as certainly as long as I've known him, but the stories he'd tell me were about skipping school to be able to go out and, find ways to get out on the water. We live near the water, so there's like lots of boats around, finding his way to get on a boat and go sailing, or, he could never be kept very far away from the ocean. And so this was very clearly from the very get-go, the direction he wanted to take. He went to a specialized college. He went to the Maritime Academy instead of a regular college, because he knew like ships were going to be where he spent most of his life.
Yeah. So he was meant to be out in the water.
Yeah, you can't hold him down. He's like, he's always going to do what he wants. But I also think it just really appealed to him. The water, it is really tricky, right? You've got currents, you've got all kinds of undertows, you've got sandbars. There's a lot there that you have to navigate. Yeah. And I think he really enjoyed the challenge. Yeah. Like, how do you smoothly navigate a vessel through what is often, 7 or 8 different factors that are making this thing incredibly dangerous to be able to do. So always a little bit of a risk taker. Yeah,
it makes sense why he would get straight into not just marathoning, but ultra marathoning. And we were making this joke yesterday that we found out that an ultra marathon is anything more than 26.2. So 26.3 is an ultra marathon.
You're in the zone.
You're in the zone. So, but to see all the accolades and to see he was running 50 miles, 100-mile races before it was ever on Instagram, before it was popularized to take a picture of your watch to show people you went out for a run, he was out there running miles. And I have so much respect for people who do those kinds of things, because the only thing you really get on the other side is a belt or a medal. You get, obviously there's so much physical, like it's a very personal accolade that you achieve that nobody else can see because it's like something that's inside. And I connect with runners in a different way than I do with other people, because we suffer for fun, right? Like we go out there and run and like
total masochists.
So I love that. And when you told me that your dad was a runner, I didn't understand to what magnitude.
And everyone's like, "Oh, I run, I jog." It's like, no. My dad's idea of a good day is going out on the hottest day of the year in California at the lowest elevation, and then running without stopping until he hits the highest elevation. So going in Death Valley in the desert up to the top of Mount Whitney, like that's a good day for my dad.
That's so funny. What a guy.
Or crazy.
Yeah. Did that rub off on you to then go run, or did it make you want to run in the opposite direction and like not do anything?
I was never in a place where I wanted to do 135 miles. Like that just did not call to me. I was like, this feels like a degree of masochism that I cannot connect with. But there's something so meditative about just hitting the trails and letting your mind and your body move into a space that isn't about your to-do list. It's not about who said what to you or what you're going to do next, or it's just about being. That feels so right, and it feels so organic, and that's something my dad gave to me by just taking me out on the trails. We ran so much together, and you feel so good after spending time in nature and giving your body a little bit of a workout and breathing deeply. We never breathe that deeply otherwise. So no, that's stuck with me. It's gotten harder as I've become a parent to find the time to be able to do that until I can get my kids out on the trail, which I'm definitely hoping to do. But no, he didn't have to force me to do it. He definitely instilled a love of it in me.
And I'm sure you guys shared a lot of great conversations on those runs and built. And maybe when you're younger, you don't realize the kind of bond that you're building with a parent if you're going out for a run or going out for a drive or whatever it is. But I'm sure that's something that you can look back on now and say like, yeah, those were pretty important times.
Yeah, there's such like camaraderie too. I mean, it's like when you're out on the trail, but also when you're at races, like the community of people who are all in it together and running their own race, but doing it next to one another. There's such a positivity around that. I love it.
It makes me emotional.
I was so hooked on it. I was like, wow, I want to be part of this. This feels so right, and it's exciting, and it's wonderful to be around other people who get it.
Yeah. So to have such a close relationship with your dad, was it difficult then to I guess leave and go do your own thing and live your own life? Was that a difficult transition for you?
No, I mean, well, my dad would never let me live my own life. He was always bothering me. He was like showing up at my door in college, and I was like, Dad, this is embarrassing. Like, you gotta go. This is not right. So he would always find excuses to show up, and like he was very, very present in my life. He was constantly visiting me in New York. Very proud dad. My boss, all my bosses knew him because he'd just show up, and I was like, Dad, no one's gonna take me seriously. So he didn't really give me that option. He wasn't going to let me have that. But no, I knew from a pretty early age, like I was never going to be a ship captain. He tried, and I was like, this is not happening, So I already knew I was going to be carving my own path. And I think a little bit of that was like, I had been raised by someone who's so independent and a little bit of a maverick themselves that it was quite natural to take a more independent position and just say like, hey, I'm striking out on my own, and there's going to be a different journey ahead of me.
So you went straight to New York out of college, or where did you attend college?
Yeah, I went to Cal, which was a mistake because it was too close to my dad. he was there like every night. Yeah, it was like 40 minutes away, and I was like, oh, I really should have gone farther away. I went to Cal. I love learning, and I was like, I'm not done. I really wish I could just go to school forever. So I went to grad school after Cal. I went to USC. And this is where some of the adventures started to take off. At USC, they offered me an opportunity to become a professor while I was there. I'm during my graduate studies, and they were like, hey, we'll give you like tuition back if you're willing to teach. And that became my first like real job, and I was like, oh, wow, this is a big responsibility. You're talking to people who like, they're about to go out into the world. Like, do I have what it takes to actually give them any wisdom? I don't know, And so I really fell in love with academia at that point. And I was like, maybe I'll be a professor forever. This seems like a cool gig. You get summer, you get to talk to people about ideas, like students who are really curious. But I was only like 22 at the time. So I was like, I don't know what I'm talking about,
I was still so young.
I know. And I was like, I'm like telling these people how to think about life. And I'm like, I don't even know what life is. Like, what am I doing? And so pretty quickly I realized like, okay, academia is great, but I think I should probably have some learning to do of like getting myself out into the real world and just figuring out what is this place all about before I eventually go back to teaching again. And I still would love to go back to teaching. And at that point I was like, well, what's happening in the world? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And tech was just taking off in this crazy way at that point. Facebook had just started to really hit at speed of like user growth in which, making the world more open and connected was turning into this very real promise. And I was like, oh man, this is really exciting. What's happening in tech, and what are the new possibilities of what this can do? And so pretty quickly I was like, oh, I think I want to figure out what is my place in all this. Where could I add value? And at that point, I knew I'd been an English major. I was really good with language. I was like, maybe it's in telling the story of what's happening here, and how do you find your way into this where you can use these skills to really talk about the impact and the change that technology is having on our culture. I mean, things were totally different at that point. And that's when I started to make moves to get into the tech sector, and first started in an agency who was supporting a whole bunch of technology companies. So I didn't go straight into big tech. I really went into an agency where there was like tech, small tech, all the way up to big tech. And you really get to see what's happening in this ecosystem. And it was wildly exciting and crazy. And I think that was probably like my first taste of, wow, there's all kinds of different ways to come into this industry. And at that point, one of the accounts was for Facebook, which was still kind of on its way up. And when
do you remember what year this was?
I want to say this must have been sometime around like 2015, 2016, something around. And so when they approached me, they were like, "Hey, do you want to come take over this, and this? Everything's going so fast." I was like, this feels like the place where things are happening. Let me in. You guys have Nobel Prize winners and Pulitzer Prize winners, and people who have like literally invented the field of artificial intelligence working here. This feels like a good spot to really understand where you can have the most impact. Yeah. And so that's really where I launched into working truly in technology and on the inside of what that looks like, where we're working with like developers and designers and product managers and marketers, and you're seeing the whole thing come together. And I think that's where I got the bug. I was like, oh, when this is done right, you can do some amazing things. This is a pretty exciting medium to be in.
Yeah. So what were you most drawn to working in tech? Was it the fact that it was new and that it was innovative, or was it because like, what was it that was so like that drew you in?
Yeah. God, I think it's a great question. I think there's probably two answers to that. One, I love people, and having such insanely talented people working in one place was so compelling to me to just be around. I wanted to just marinate in their minds, like what are you thinking about, and how do I work with you, and what does this look like? And so I loved the idea that you could have such a diversity of talent all in one place. That felt to me like such a great way to spend my day. And then I think second, it felt like technology was solving things in new ways that hadn't been done before. At that point, there was this huge shift to mobile that not everybody believed or got behind. It was like, sure, there's going to be smartphones, but is everybody going to have one? I don't know, And you're seeing, and you're like, oh my God, I'm watching culture and society change, and I'm part of the engine that's changing it right now. And it's unlocking these crazy cool things that we can now do that humanity could not do before. That is wild to be on the inside of, as opposed to on the outside of watching happen. So I think between those two things, that was a pretty intoxicating mix.
Yeah, for sure. To be at, I don't know how early that is in Facebook's stages, but to be there in 2015 and 2016 and to just be around all those people who are hungry to push the product forward or push development forward because they see what sort of impact it's making in culture and on humanity, and like just being on the cutting edge of like technology, that must be so. I would probably never be able to go to sleep, and I would sleep at work and like want to just work on ideas all day.
Yeah, I remember when we hit 1 billion users. No one had hit 1 billion users before. So you're like breaking new ground here entirely. It'd be like the same as if like you're introducing electricity to the world, and you're just like, whoa, this thing is really taking off. This is going to change everything forever. Yeah. I think we're kind of in one of those moments right now.
For sure, with AI and it's so
it's
exciting.
It's super exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's like another wave of what happened, but at a faster rate, right? Because it's moving so fast. So you start around 2015, 2014. What was your role when you first started, and then what did it evolve to at the end?
Yeah, it's like amazing when you're at a fast growth company. You just keep getting thrown things. Like if you don't mess it up, then it's like, great, okay, cool, you're doing that. Now we're gonna add this to it too, and now you got to do this too and this too. So I started out in the very beginning helping all of Facebook's executives with speaking and thought leadership. So when they would go out and meet the rest of the world, whether this was a developer audience or, they're talking to marketers or they're talking to business leaders, how do you tell the story of what it is that Facebook's building and why is it important and how is it actively changing the world? Really helping work with those leaders on how to communicate that effectively and to, really make sure that we're taking the time not just to innovate on the inside, but then bringing the rest of the world along with us. So I started there, and that was really great because it was a good marriage of I'm great with storytelling. I love people. This is really fun. Got to work with Sheryl Sandberg, COO at the time, the head of products. It's just like these are people at the helm of the thing. And so it was really fun. And then that quickly evolved into like, okay, cool, you're going to do that. Plus we need you to also manage, we're like opening up offices everywhere in the world. And we have all of these spaces where we're bringing all these CEOs in. Cool, can you just figure that out? And so I was in charge of all of our executive centers in all of our offices around the world. And so I was like jumping on planes everywhere. Like, what's our program? How are we bringing world business leaders in and making sure that they really truly understand what it is that we're doing here? What are the teams that we need in each of these places? And then it was like, hey, cool, you figure that part out. Now we also want you to kind of stay on top of what's happening in the industry. What's the intelligence of like, how are all of our competitors starting to maneuver? And can we track all of this and make sure that it's influencing our product roadmap, our business roadmap? We can understand where are the signals and the noise, like what's Google doing? What's Pinterest doing? What's Snap doing? What's, eventually what's TikTok doing? And so I got to work with like, okay, what do we need to do in order to make sure that we're staying smart? Everybody's working so fast. Let's stay on top of all of this. So then I started working on that, which is head of industry intelligence. So I just kept collecting things. By the end, I think the last one they threw at me was like industry sponsorships and partnerships. So starting to do all of our big, large scale sponsorships in places like CES, which is the big tech conference of the year, things like that. So I never really changed jobs. I just kept adding team. I got to be out of a pretty big team over there. After a while, they were all phenomenally talented. There were people all over the world, and that was also my first real lesson in how well people can work together from different backgrounds and cultures and countries via Zoom, via technology on different time zones. If you've got the right group of committed people working together, you can do a lot, even when you're not in the same room.
So you crafted your own role pretty much. Like that wasn't a job, that wasn't in the job listing. And then you kind of just kept adding all these infinity stones to your belt. And,
yeah. I loved it all. And so it was more of a matter of like, okay, what more can you take on while I'm here? Yeah. Usually then it became like, oh, what's the problem, child? Like, Shauna, can you go fix it? Like, here's a project. Yeah. Can you kind of figure out how to make this work?
Yeah. And so how long did you stay at Facebook?
Gosh, I was there for like 7, 8 years. Yeah. So it was a while, way longer than I expected to be.
Really?
Yeah, because I feel like we grew up in a time in which it was like, cool, you do your 4 years and then you're on to the next.
Was that
experience.
Sort of the lifespan of somebody working in a company like Facebook?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who stayed for much longer at Facebook. I think it was pretty unique, but I don't know. I kind of think I came out of college and grad school just assuming no one ever stays at the same place for very long. It's kind of not what you do. Yeah. So it surprised me how long I ended up staying.
So coming into the role, knowing that your lifespan is 4 years, were you thinking about what's my next move while working there? Or were you sort of like, let me just see where this takes me?
It's a great question. I feel like one of the ways that I've heard this talk about is more around impact. And in the very beginning, while you're trying something you've never done before, it's incredibly hard. You're really bad at it. And there's a very high learning curve or sharp learning curve that you have to take on in order to master the thing. And so for the first couple of years at Facebook, it felt like it was just like, like I'm constantly feeling like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like racing home to go and like read as much as I possibly can. I'm like, oh God, like I don't even know what I'm doing, right? Like this is terrible. And then you hit this moment, like a plateau where you're like, okay, I think I've got this. I actually do know what I'm talking about. And like this is not going so badly at this point. And then you kind of get into like, okay, I'm plateauing, but now I'm actually like kind of falling a little bit asleep at the wheel because I know I understand this so well that I'm not as present in it. And I found that like the last couple of years, when I was there, I had built up this incredible team. They were all so good at what they were doing that it kind of put me out of that headspace of really feeling like I was active and present. I didn't need to be in the same way. And I think that's really where the beginning inklings came from of like, as much as that's crazy, I missed the hard learning curve, of like really being bad at something and then having to get good at it. And I wanted to do it again.
That's so interesting. I wonder how much of that is attributed to, I guess, your relationship with your dad and growing up and all the hard stuff that he, wanted to do. Because a lot of people stay with where they're comfortable, right? If I got a good job and I have a great team, like what's the point in leaving? Like I don't need to learn anything new. I'm doing fine. So 7, 8, you stayed there 7, 8 years. What was the transition after that?
I mean, I'd been sitting and like helping my dad for most of the majority of that time.
Oh, while working at Facebook.
While working at Facebook. And so I had this dual reality where I was living my day doing all this like cool high tech stuff. We were doing things like we live streamed the first Earth rise from the International Space Station in VR, like never before done. And you're talking like, it's very far away, right? And at the same time, I'd clock out from work and I'd be hitting my head against a wall trying to figure out how do I stay on top of my dad's mail, across the country. So I had this like tale of two realities. One in which I'm like, cool, we're letting everybody see the Earth rise. And then one where I'm like, oh, USPS, like how do I figure out paper mail? And that disparity of like, okay, if we can do all of this so far away and tech can play this amazing role, can't it play a more important role closer to home? And why does it feel so broken? And why does it feel like it's so absent from my experience of helping my dad? And so towards the end, as I was hitting that plateau at work, I was like, this problem was nagging at me. Like, we could be doing better. And once you've seen this journey, you never want anyone else to go through it without support. Like you just don't want anyone behind you to ever feel, at least I didn't, like I did when I was starting out on all this. And so that's kind of where I was like, okay, life is short, man. I don't have very much time. If I'm going to really try and take the energy required to go out and solve something hard, it's either going to happen now or it's not going to happen. Like I got maybe 5 years, 6 years of good years of really going hard at a tough problem. It feels like there's not a lot of tough problems in my day job at Facebook right now that need me as much as this other problem. Yeah. And that was the transition where I like was really getting my mind into a place where I was ready to go out and take this on.
Yeah. But did you know exactly what that looked like at the time?
It's a good question. I had hacked together this whole system at my dad's house. So like slowly over time, I was building up this crazy cobbled together tech infrastructure that like makes no sense, It's like Google Docs and like, email accounts and smart cameras and all this stuff. So I don't know if I didn't like have this grand vision of like, hey, I'm going to go build this super slick looking thing. I just had this like wonky taped together solution that I had built for my family. And anytime I was talking to, others who were starting on this journey, and I was kind of giving them tips. They were like, "Oh man, I gotta take notes. I gotta like put this thing together." And I think that's where I realized like, okay, maybe we take this sort of like stitched together thing that I've just built to solve my own problem and make something that could actually be used by other people.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what was that introduction like into being? I know we talked about it earlier, where you didn't even know the label of a caregiver. You're just trying to help out your dad. What did the early days of that look like? Like, where did it start? Did it start with getting the mail? Did it start with like, hey, where did I leave this? Or like, how did that start?
Yeah. Well, like most family caregivers, it started when bad things started happening. My dad started going to the ATM every day and taking out the max withdrawal. I didn't know this. And then I don't know where it went. Either we think maybe he was like throwing it away. I found out 2 weeks later. He'd been going to every day. Yeah. I missed a deadline for renewing his health insurance, which when you have Alzheimer's is not great for then getting coverage again. And so going through some sleepless nights of like, how was I going to get my dad back onto like being covered? Those that like created enough scar tissue where I was like, ooh, this is bad. I think we need to go out and do something about this.
And was he still working at the time when all this started?
No, that was also a really tough moment. As his daughter, as someone he really trusted, he listened to me, and like it was very clear something was going on, and he was taking longer to tell his stories. You kind of start to have a sense something's not quite right. He wasn't as independent as normal. He's getting like turned around and lost. Normal routes he would take, he like would get lost on. And so this was really tough. I had to have a talk with him like, hey, you need to let your work know that this is happening. This is really important. The stakes are really high when you're captaining cargo ships. Like that could be really bad. And that, like, I have to give credit where credit is due. He did the brave thing and he told his work, even though what it meant was like ending the thing that he loved. And that was when he went into early retirement. And that's kind of when I formally started kicking in on a lot of this. But even then, he was in denial. He didn't believe the diagnosis. He was fighting it all the way to the end. Very upsetting for him to be living with that diagnosis.
I'm sure. As with most people, right? Like it's gonna be hard to accept that you can no longer live the life that you've lived, and now you got to turn around and figure out what's next. So how was the transition for you? Like, I know it was over a span of a long time, but hearing about the diagnosis and then like knowing that you have to then help out and show up more, like was that hard on you?
It was just scary. My dad, he went in for they asked him to go in for a neurology exam, and I was at work in New York, and he just walked out of the neurologist's office and left his car in the parking lot, and he was gone for 13 hours. No one could find him. I was so scared. You don't know how is someone going to handle that. So there's a lot of fear in the early days. Like I don't know what I'm getting myself into. My dad is not handling this well. I feel very powerless, so far away. I don't even know what my role is supposed to be in any of this. It just felt like, we are now into a bad chapter, where I feel very out of control and not able to help.
Because it's just you and your brother, right? You guys are the only siblings, and like do you have people that you call to ask for help, or like how do you even start with that? Like, hey, dad's having a hard time. Like, should we move him here to New York, or like do I move back, or what was the I guess, I don't know, who did you reach out to, I guess, at the time, if anybody at all?
Yeah. I wish I could say it was like, oh, we were like, I know, I'm going to call, There was like probably too long of being like, I don't know what to do about this. Do you know what to do about this? No. And so it was a lot of like, we're in trouble. So lots of awkwardness ensued, where we probably didn't take as much action as we should have. I worked really hard to get my dad an appointment at UCSF, which is one of the best hospitals in the country for memory and aging. Because in my mind, it was like, if I just get him a good doctor, the rest will take care of itself. It was like a 6 month wait to get in there. But eventually we did get him in, and they were an incredible team. But that's also where, I got the sobering reality from the team, which is like, oh, they're not going to fix all this. They can't be there to take care of my dad when he's not in a doctor's appointment. This is on the family to figure out. And I think that's when it really struck home that like my life was about to change in a major way. And it was like, I better grow up. I better grow up.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, right? Because you have to switch roles, right? Because your dad for the longest was, this is my dad, and he's Superman, and then now to step into a different role, like, oh, I have to help out more than I'm used to. It's got to be tough, and I talk to so many people that have a hard time transitioning into that because they want to hold on to, no, this is my mom, this is my dad. They've always been fine. Like, why do we have to change that? But I think acceptance is the fastest way to start figuring out, okay, how can we solve the problem that we're currently facing right now? Because if you hold on to, no, I want it to stay the way that it's always been, then it's hard to be in the present and actually fix what's going on right now. So it's very brave of you to step up and help out your dad. It's very commendable.
Very kind. I didn't feel brave at the time. It felt right. It was just like, we got to do something. Like we are getting nailed by like, every direction. This is bad, man. My dad's losing money. He's getting scammed. Like this is not good. Yeah. And I'm the kind of person too who immediately is like, I don't think the emotions come first. It's like the to-do list comes first. Yeah. It's like, okay, it's going to be fine. We're going to figure this out. I got my 10-step plan. We're going to we're going to get through that plan, and on the other side of it is, the happy solution. And that is one thing my dad's doctor did for me, which was one of the best gifts ever, when I sat down with him at UCSF, and I'm on my first appointment with him, and I've got my notepad out, and I'm like ready to solve this. I'm like, let's go, and he's just so patient, and he just takes a minute. And he's now been my dad's doctor for many, many years, but he's just like, I just want you to know, I know that you think that there's some perfect outcome here and you're going to get the A in this. There is no A. Like, that is not what this is. You are not on that race. Yeah. This is about making sure your dad's comfortable. This is about the best of not great options and knowing that they're not great. And it's going to be hard. Yeah. And that to me actually was the best gift to shake me out of this idea that somehow I was going to solve my way out of Alzheimer's, which is an impossible feat, and one that I think a lot of people spend a lot of years feeling bad about their inability to do. And the truth is none of us can. Yeah.
It's just a plane that's eventually going to land, and you have to try to land it in the smoothest way possible. Because it's not going to stay in the air. And I think that's that was something that was difficult for my family when my grandmother, she was never clinically diagnosed with dementia, but we knew, like, you just know, and she's no longer the same, and she's going through all these new things, and it's really scary. But I think the sooner, like I said earlier, the sooner that you can accept that this is your new reality, and in what way can we make her the most comfortable? In what way can I make my dad the most comfortable? That's when you start coming up with real solutions that you can, like, in what way can you help? And I love all of the solutions that you've built. I put that in quotes, but I kind of mistakenly, because these are actual solutions that anybody can implement in their house right now, because it allows you to be here while you're not here, right? You have all these cameras. Your house is rigged with with all kinds of tech, which is so it can be so helpful to so many people, because not everybody comes from a tech background, working in Facebook with the smartest people in the world. And even just setting up a camera in the living room could make all the difference for somebody.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's also just peace for the person who's taking care of the family member or the loved one or friend, because it allows you to have permission to go somewhere else. Like, it's okay if you can have a little bit of a backstop or a security measure behind you. You can maybe take that meeting, or you can now go for that job interview. You don't have to feel like if you're not physically there, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
You have the ability to have a little bit more support than just you physically having to be there in one place.
Speaking of support, you introduced me to
Da.
Da, yeah, which she's so sweet, and
Best.
I think everybody needs a Da in their life, especially caregivers, because they do want to step away sometimes. They do need to go out just for a walk or go for dinner or something, but they don't know like that people like her exist out there that want to help, and they don't even know how to start asking for help. How did you even come into contact or know that you could reach out to people for help?
Da is amazing. Da is a fundamental part of our team. It's like she's with my dad 5 days a week, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And this would not work without her. She is the most gentle, most patient human being. And we are so lucky to have her as part of our team. There are people who are out there who are incredibly empathetic and kind and patient with those who need care, and they're just attuned and gentle and really special human beings. I found Da because I put a posting on care.com, and I wanted to go out and find the best member of my team I could, in the same way the skills I used at work, which was put out a really good job description and then interview a billion people. And that's what we did. I set up 2 days where I brought 40 different people into a local cafe for like 20-minute coffees with me. It was a lot of coffees. Yeah, but it was like, okay, I'm gonna do it somewhere safe, so it's not at my dad's house. I want to meet these people before I introduce anyone and even do a trial. Met with 40 different people. Not any of them were exactly right for the job description, and I remember being at the end of the 40th, and I was like, ugh, no, man, I got to do this again for another weekend. This is terrible. And then one of the candidates who had not had a schedule that matched up but was really great reached out to me and said, actually, I do know someone who maybe you should meet. It sounds like, she would actually be a really good fit for you. And it turned out to be Da. And, right away I was like, oh, this woman is amazing. And she's just the exact right chemistry fit for my dad. And oh, wait, when can you start? When can you start? But even then, the next step was, okay, I got to introduce her to my dad, because I might think this, but it all comes down to my dad. And like, they're going to be the ones spending the most amount of time together. So I took off a couple days of work for this. I wanted to be there for all of it and to do it right. We brought Da to come meet my dad, and we just did the same walk you and I did. We walked down to Andy's, took a little walk all together, and I could just tell, like, my dad really enjoyed being around her. She was so patient and gentle, and I got to kind of be a little bit. I stepped back and I was a fly on the wall. I think I have the recording somewhere of this. I took a little video, and I just remember this feeling of like, oh, a huge sigh of relief. Like, I found the person who I think is such a critical piece of all of this, that's gonna help us actually pull this off. And the rest is history. That was years and years ago, before COVID. Da's been with our family ever since. So there are definitely people out there who are willing to help. And I would highly advise anyone who's like thinking about it, if you're lucky enough to be able to bring somebody in and add to your team, so it's not just on one person's shoulders, it makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah. How do you even, because I feel like even for me, thinking back to my journey with my grandmother, there's no way that I'm sitting at a coffee shop with 40 people, like interviewing to then come to the house, because I have so much, I guess, trust issues, if you want to call it that. Like, I don't think that anybody could do this at the level that I'm doing it. So how do you even get over that, and then to then look and trust that somebody else out there can do what you would do if you were here?
it was tough for me. I had to let go a little bit, you know. I'm super controlling. So I'm like, oh, it's not right. Like you didn't do that right. Um, I I knew, I mean, I was also just like constrained. There was no way. You know, I'm a stepmom. I had two little girls at the time who were in New York and they were pulling me in a different direction. I was not going to be able to be both here and there at the same time. And, you know, my dad loves the sea. He loves this space. He grew up in this home. The last thing I wanted to do was say, like, hey, this is inconvenient for me. I'm going to uproot you, you know, and like take you away from what you love so that, you know, I can do this all myself. It felt like you reach these points in which you have to surrender and you have to let go and you have to be willing to like take a leap of faith on someone else being able to help you. And I did on Da, and it turned out to be a really happy story.
Yeah, one of the most important people of your team, right? Like
For
couldn't do it.
sure.
Yeah, and I think everybody longs for something like that if they don't already have that in their life. And I think a lot of people don't even like I was saying earlier, they don't realize that there are people that want to help because you have family members that don't even want to help. So how could a stranger come into your house and help? But I think that's your story is going to be so helpful to so many people because they're going to say, if she could find somebody to be here from 8 to 8, I could probably find somebody from 8 to 8
Yeah,
also.
you absolutely can. You absolutely can. You got to put it out into the world, right? Don't already think that it's impossible before you go looking, and you'd be surprised. You know, they're like we're part of a community, a broader community, and it's amazing to see who is called to this work and who actually takes so much joy and purpose and meaning in supporting those who are like my dad, who are going through this and, you know, really need that level of empathy and that level of patience. It's incredibly hard what my dad is doing right now. You know, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine.
I can't imagine. When I first, I mean, I met your dad, and before I even met your dad, I saw the man on the newspaper and like saw all these things, and then to then think it can all change so quickly, and I can't even imagine. I you know I yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see, and yeah, and also it's really difficult for a family caregiver to then accept that their dad is or their loved one is no longer who they knew them to be.
I still don't know if I've accepted it. I think it's like, you know, you go through shades of denial. I have a fantasy that you know, my dad is going to wake up and it's going to be like old times and he's going to be like, "Oh, thank God you didn't put me in, you know, some bad place. Like you kept that, like," he's like, "I wouldn't have agreed with this or this, but like overall you did okay," you know? And there's always this sort of, is he coming back? Like, I'm just like waiting and I'm keeping everything ready for when he's ready to come back. And I know that that's delusional, but at the same time, it's very real as the family member who's looking to support him.
I had the same thing. I've never. That's so funny. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody say that, and I had the same for my grandma because I would have dreams sometimes when she was alive, like that she was well and she was walking around, and the old grandma that I knew. And unfortunately, that time never came. But I think a lot of people share that same sentiment, hoping that their family member goes back to normal, or back to what they knew them to be.
So it's a process for us. I don't
Yeah.
know if I've even. I don't know.
And
you
who
know?
knows if you ever will,
I
right?
might not. You know, maybe that's why I'm building this tech. I'm like, oh man, like it's a
Yeah.
distraction, you know, from the thing that my family is going through right now.
So you were showing me your phone with all the
Yeah.
tech that's in your house
Yeah.
and stuff. Does that add extra weight to your life because you can check on your dad and like there's like because for me, knowing in the back of my mind that my grandmother always needed my help, that was very heavy. So to then see it on your phone and to know that you can check in and you don't know what you're going to see when you open this app. You don't know what this alert means. Does that add an extra a weight to all of this?
It's a good question. Both yes and no. I love knowing that I can step in and be there in a moment's notice. I love being able to immediately monitor if something's going on. So there's a certain peace that comes with that. level of visibility. And then on the other side, I hear this from a lot of other family caregivers I talk to. There's this sort of mental tax that's being put on the system. It's always in the background. You're never really off duty. You're kind of like, oh, let me just like check that phone another time. Is there anything going on? So I think for sure it's now a part of my reality that like a piece of me is always in a little bit of monitor mode. But it's amazing how quickly we acclimate to some of this. And I think it was a lot harder for me in the beginning. And now that I've been doing it for so many years, I don't know any different. So I don't notice it being painful.
Yeah, it's just part of your life. It's crazy what you can get used to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think about that with my grandmother. There were so many personal tasks that I had to get used to doing for my grandmother, and then after 8 years, you're like, yeah, that's just what I had to do. And then other people see it like, how do you even get used to it? And you'd be so surprised what you get acclimated to, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's why also I have so much respect for family caregivers because I feel like their tolerance for everything is so much higher. They're more patient, they're more productive. I think it's probably because we're all sleeping less, right? But like incredible human beings who've been kind of like stretched to the max and then now have made that their normal. So like I have a whole bunch of caregivers on my team. They're the most productive people I've ever met in my life. Like they know how to make 48 hours out of 24.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also because, your time is so limited because you could be spending it with your loved one, or you could, if within this 30-minute block that I have while they're taking a nap, I could do something with my time. And you respect time way more as a family caregiver because you just, yeah.
I find like actually one of the real hacks is like stacking 3 things on top of each other. So bringing when I would bring my 3.5-year-old to come visit her grandpa, and I'll tell them all like, hey, we're all gonna go get a pedicure. We're gonna get our nails done, and grandpa loves it. The 3.5-year-old's like, what are we doing? This is crazy. And we're all in a seat, which is great. And then I can be on my phone actually working.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, okay, cool. We're doing some social time. We're getting some self-care in. I can work. I can get some self-care in. And like all of these things are happening in 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's such a smart hack for anybody, I guess, if you want to, go get a pedicure real quick. In what other context are you gonna sit down and do that? So Facebook, you're working there, you're helping your dad out, transitioning to I guess finding a solution for yourself and for other people. How do you where does Tendercare fit into all of that?
Tendercare is my gift to my past self and to all the other caregivers that are starting this journey or are on it right now. This is the thing that I wish someone had handed me when I'm sitting there on the day my dad gets diagnosed and I'm totally in the dark and I don't know where he is and I'm in like a total psychological free fall of what to do or where to even turn for help. I'm like, literally, I remember being paralyzed by this. And so Tendercare is me rewinding time and building the thing that was missing in that picture. Yeah. So it's a bit of a love letter, I think. And it's also because of my massive respect for everyone else who is doing this and doing this silently and often without thanks. And none of it's fair. And I kind of want to even the scales a little bit for everybody.
So good. It's so funny because you were mentioning earlier that your team is good, everything is good. The team at Facebook, they were good, and you're like, there's no challenge in this anymore because everybody doesn't really need me anymore. So to then take on a new challenge with Tendercare to start from the ground up to build something that's useful for caregivers, where do you start with that?
Oh man, you start with being really bad at something.
What is the first day of this? I'm going to build this thing. What does that look like?
I mean, thank God I didn't realize just how hard it was then. There's no way. I'm I'm a masochist and I'm willing to eat humble pie, but I'm like, oh man, after a couple of years of doing this, I'm like, oh, this is a good thing. I didn't know how hard this was. It started at that point with, how much of my savings can I put towards pulling this off? How do I actually go about doing the thing, and who do I need to help me do this? And really having a hard talk with my husband about, how much of, our savings can I put towards starting to build this? Figuring out what that number is, and then just committing and not knowing what I'm doing and just getting started. That's really where this thing began. And then very quickly realizing like, oh, whoa, turns out software is expensive. I'm going to need more help. This is not something that can be done just, on a whim, at least not by like a normal family. So then I was like, okay, now we're going to need to go raise some capital for this and actually bring on a team and, really think through how do I find a way to attract incredibly talented engineers and designers and, marketers and, business people to come work on this with me, because this is way too big for just one person. So it was, okay, get the thing started so it's not just an idea in my head. Use my savings, run out of my savings, and then go see if I can really make the case and raise some funding to go bring the right great people on to come do this alongside me.
Yeah. That sounds like so much effort and time. And I guess it was
kind of like an ultra run.
Right. Yeah. Like I guess it was better that you didn't know what you were getting into when you got into it. Cause now it's a little too late to back out. Right.
Yeah.
Like
now I'm like, I'm stuck.
Yeah. You got this amazing team who I met earlier, they're all incredible. And yeah, you absolutely can't do it without a team.
No, you can't. And I like the best advice I ever got was like, you should be the stupidest person in the room. And I really apply that to my team. I'm like, okay, let's bring all the geniuses together to go and really tackle this big problem. They're so wildly talented. So now, yeah, I think the piece that also brings so much purpose and also energy to this is it's not just hard. It's when you actually start to see progress. Yeah. Like when we got our first caregivers into our app, it was like, oh, you guys, we have real people in here. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's not just us anymore.
It's not just us. Oh no, now we got to like really make this amazing. And or you see like the first really, really hard integration that you've done works the way that you envisioned it. And it's so much better than anything out there, like fixing the ability for a family to let emergency, service, professionals know what your family member is currently diagnosed with, and how do you let the rest of the family know at the same time? These are like huge victories. Yeah, it's really exciting.
What are some aspects of the app that, what are solutions that the app provides that you're super excited about right now? I'm sure the whole thing, of course, but.
I mean, first, I think before any of the specific features, what I'm excited about is like, I think we've sort of turned down the noise a little bit of all the things that are coming at someone when they take this role on. It's like, there's a diagnosis and there's health information you need to research and there's paperwork and, what else do I do? There's doctor's appointments. We've made such an easy experience for anyone of like, you just show up, let us know what's going on, and we're going to make it so easy for you to feel like here are the next most important steps of things that you can do. Maybe this is about getting organized. Maybe this is about doing a little bit of research, on the condition your mom or your dad has. But it's like so simple, and you don't need to spend 3 hours on it. You can spend just a couple minutes. So that's just like the overall emotional experience. Like we've built a space in which we can take a little bit of the fear and the chaos and the feeling alone down. Some of the features that I'm most excited about right now, we've been working pretty tightly with the team over at Medicare on making it so that, a family can work together for the first time on uploading within like 15 seconds all of the conditions, medications, providers, doctors into one place, where suddenly now there's this incredible knowledge transfer that's happening inside a family of like, oh, hey, grandma, this is really important. I'm really glad that I know what the medications are you're taking, what they're for, what are the things I should be watching out for as someone who's taking care of you. These are all the extra caregiving tips and like a little bit of the magic dust we sprinkle over the top of that information. And we've been working on this one for a while. So it's really exciting to be able to sort of offer families the ability to have a full and complete record of what's going on without having to do a lot of the treasure hunting to go and try and find this stuff, look in notebooks, look at like printouts, stuff like that. And then the second one is Magic Magnet, which is just the ability to make sure you've got coverage on your loved one's fridge. If something goes wrong, you don't need to worry. You've got everything there. You can upload all of their most important information. EMS can quickly scan it, QR code, and they're on their way. Yeah. And you've just shown up in such an amazing way for your loved one.
It's so good. I was so happy to see what do you guys call it?
It's called the Magic Magnet.
The Magic Magnet, because I had EMS come into my house one time when my grandma had a fall, and they're just grilling you. They need to know all this information, but it feels like I'm getting grilled with all of this questioning, and sometimes I don't know the answers to the questions that you're asking me. Also, because I'm very emotionally distraught right now because there's a lot of I got like 12 people in the house, like carrying my grandmother out, and it's the last thing I'm thinking about is how much medication she's taking and
what's the dosage. Right. Yeah, you're like, what?
I don't even know how to say the thing.
Yeah, I know. You're like, what is this name of this thing? Right.
And so I think if EMS could just quickly scan and just get a quick glance at everything, it's so good. And I love that you have a person on your team that specifically speaks to caregivers. I don't know if that's her entire role, but she was talking to caregivers and seeing what features are working and what features are not, and how can we improve. And
yeah, it's always a journey. How can you make it a little bit better? Janelle's amazing. She has her PhD in family relationships. So, I mean, these are just incredible people who are doing this work. And yeah, we make sure we're talking to like usually it's like 10 family caregivers a week. We're asking them for their input. When we say we're, made for caregivers, built by caregivers, we really mean it.
Yeah. I love that. And I think you couldn't build this without their feedback. You couldn't build this without caregivers, because without them, this wouldn't even exist in the first place.
It wouldn't actually work, right? So they keep us real. Yeah. Like, what do they actually need? Where are the places where they're finding the most difficulty? Where can we help?
Yeah. So with tech moving so quickly now, do you guys even have a long-term vision for the company? Because it's moving so fast. You don't know what's happening tomorrow.
Future vision, like how we get there, I think is always the interesting part. But the future vision has really stayed the same, which is we become the single destination for all of your caregiving need and help. So you can come to Tendercare for, knowing what to do next, what to get organized, your own personal information, what services you may one day need. This has always been the idea. How do you take the sort of like hodgepodge system I've built, for my own dad, and then how do you make that so much more excellent for any other family to do that in like 30 seconds and have all of this set up? So the idea is, this becomes a platform for anyone who's going through this chapter in life. We become the first place you can trust is going to give you the best information back. And it's going to have the stamp of everyone who's working at Tendercare who would gladly use this product and these features with their own families.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. And I love that also a lot of your team members are caregivers, so you're getting invaluable feedback from the team because they're living and breathing this thing, and then they can take their experience and pour it out into the app, which is then going to help millions of other people, hopefully.
Yeah, it's really great for us to be doing our part. There's so much of this that's human and community and leaning into your family and your chosen family, and then bringing in tech where it can really do a little bit of the extra lift for you where you need it.
It's so I am like in the meeting earlier. I was like nerding out when I was listening to all these people talk, because this is like blending two worlds that I'm so invested in, caregiving and tech, and putting the two together to make something valuable to people it's so fascinating, exciting to
That's
me.
The exciting thing, right? When you're solving real problems. Yes. And I don't know what's more personal or more universal than how do we take care of the people we love when they get sick or they get old. This applies to everybody. And then the crazier part is it's going to apply to you and me. Like one day we're going to be old. 100%. So like, what do we have?
Yeah. What kind of thing?
we better get on that.
Right. Is there something that, I guess we could end it off on this note? Is there something that you wish you could tell your younger self going into this caregiving journey, even though you didn't know that's what this was? Like, what would you, I guess, say to young
Shauna.
you? Yeah.
This is probably not the most energizing call to arms, but I think it would just be, I'm sorry. It hurts to say goodbye, and it hurts to surrender to getting sick and getting old. And, this is something we all go through, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. It doesn't make us miss the people we love any less. And I think it would be to everybody else who's going through this, I'm sorry. It makes it better when we do it all together, but it's still a really tough chapter, no matter how much tech you put into it.
Yeah. Sometimes the best tech can't save you emotionally, right? And yeah, I love that. I would love to tell my younger self that also. Like, it's tough, and there's nothing that anybody could say to you, or any sort of support or help that anybody could tell you right now at this very moment that's going to save you. But everything is going to be fine.
And there's also incredible beauty along the way. In that, right? I think there's a lot of gifts that come through this. I know this is crazy, but Alzheimer's has been an amazing teacher for me as a human. It's forced me to become a better version of myself. It's forced me to become a wiser version of myself. I've really learned a lot about life through this illness. And so it's definitely not something I would have ever wished on myself. But now that it's here and it's in our lives, I know that I am such a stronger and a more empathetic version of myself than I would have been if it hadn't showed up at our door.
Thank you so much, Shauna, for
Yeah,
letting
thank
us into
you.
your beautiful, beautiful home.
Oh,
And
thank you
I'm
for
so happy to be here as a fly on the wall, to see you in the team work. I'm so inspired by all of your staff and everybody that you work with. It's so amazing to see you guys tackle this huge beast and run up this really big hill that's scary, and there's so much unknown. And to see you doing it, it makes me so happy to see that a lot of people are going to get help from this.
Oh, thank you.
So,
We were so excited to let you in.
Yeah.
You're doing such incredible work, so we're proud to be one of the stories that you share.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.